welcome back to Revenue Remix. I'm your host, Summer Poletti, fractional CRO at Rise of Us, and today I'm flying solo. I just recorded some interviews, and there are a few more scheduled. We will get right back to that regular programming soon. I'm doing a mini pod because I was inspired by the recent conversation I had with April Duaney. She came with a ton of philosophical nuggets. So today I'm doing a deeper dive on one of those nuggets. If you missed her episode, it's the one right before this one. I highly recommend. She's smart, she's funny. There was some good stuff in there. So today, let's talk about something that no one really warns you about when you're building new offers or new products.
Welcome back to Revenue Remix, a podcast from Rise of Us, where we take a fresh spin on driving revenue growth, hosted by Summer Poletti, a fractional CRO who works with business owners and leaders who feel held back by outdated systems. This podcast explores how adaptable, unified frameworks can transform static processes, equipping teams to meet evolving customer needs and drive resilient, lasting growth. Each episode features insights from Summer and her guests, offering practical strategies to sidestep common pitfalls and build real revenue momentum. It's time to remix the way we think about growth. Enjoy the show.
And that is what happens when you love what you've built, but the market doesn't love it back. That's that nugget that I stole from April. Now, what this means to me is you've built something that you're really proud of, you're really excited about, and it's not converting to revenue, because what is the point of starting a company if you're not going to make any money, right? Otherwise, you start a nonprofit. And this isn't about criticism, it's just human nature, especially for visionaries, and a lot of founders are visionaries. But if you're scaling a business and trying to drive sustainable growth, you've got to know the difference between what feels good to create and what the market actually wants. Before we get started, let me ask you this. Do you have a product or service that's great, that you're really proud of, that you're excited about? And are you kind of struggling to make the kind of revenue that you want? If that's the case, give me 15 minutes. Let's see if we can help you. So let's first take you all the way back to where I first learned this lesson. And it was the first time I realized that I had fallen into this trap. Now, this is back in my early corporate career, so this wasn't my great idea. I was an internal subject matter expert working on a product idea from our founder. He's a classic visionary. It was his big idea. He was super proud of it. We worked on it for a couple of years and finally got it to market. And a few demos in, a prospect said something like, well, I don't need that, or that's not what I'm looking for. I don't care about that. Something. I don't remember the exact words, but I do remember how it felt, and it hit me hard. I wasn't even the founder, but I realized no one cares about the product or what it does, and I had just spent 2 years on the product team, so it felt like a total waste. So as a company, we were trying to provide something that our founder thought the market needed, and not something they were actually looking for. It took me years of listening to prospects, to clients, to objections in sales conversations, asking probing questions, and I eventually figured out how to sell that product. Not by highlighting the features that the founder was so proud of. And he and I thought about this a little bit. But once the revenue started pouring in, he would roll his eyes at how I pitched it. I didn't understand the whole point. But he did stop complaining because my approach worked. Now, this happens all the time in growth stage companies. I think that part of this problem is like the American dream concept. Having success comes from $1 million idea, and we never really hear about that $1 million idea being as simple as, well, I heard somebody talk about a problem, so I figured out a way to fix it. That's not sexy. It doesn't make headlines. So everybody's like feeling like they gotta figure out the next new iPhone or car or some groundbreaking thing that's going to be amazing. And like I said, I see a lot of visionaries in founders. And often they fall in love with an idea that sounds amazing. It's really cool. Them and their co-founder came up with it or whatever. And it might be a great idea, but it hasn't earned that market love yet, as April put it. And that market love, of course, is how I put earning revenue. And when that idea is your idea, it feels personal. Usually these decisions aren't based on data, they're based on gut instincts, on vibe, on your vision. So how do you know if your offer is landing? It's pretty simple. Are people buying it? Are people opting into your demo and converting? Do they try it and stick with it? Your green light here, your green flag, is revenue, of course. It should come as no surprise. I'm all about the revenue. Your red flags would be eyeballs that don't convert, demos that go nowhere, vague feedback like, call us back in 2 weeks, or let me think about it. Now let's go back to the beginning of this story. Back when this product first hit the market, there was no telling my former boss anything about his ideas. To be fair, he was brilliant. Grew up poor on a farm, made millions, and he was not really here for his employees pushing back on his grand ideas. But if I could go back and talk to my past self, again, I was on the product team. We did some meetings without him. He was the visionary founder who would have the idea and then exit the room and let his internal team figure out how to make it work. So I would have pushed harder to define the buyer before building the product, before spending so much time. What are their business challenges? What do they actually care about? I would also push to get beta users or early adopters feedback from somebody outside of the founder and his internal team of subject matter experts before we brought the product to market, before we fell in love with the idea. And I would launch it sooner, while it was still a little messy. When you're still nervous about it not being ready, I think that's the perfect time to get feedback because it's still flexible. You haven't spent so much time getting it perfect. You haven't tied it to your ego yet. Haven't fallen in love with the product yet. Now, what didn't exist earlier in my corporate career was AI. AI is always here somewhere as my co-pilot. So let's talk about how AI can help you validate faster, but it can also mislead you. And here's why. AI has serious pick-me energy. It really wants to please you. So if you ask it, here's my product idea, what do you think? I guarantee you that it is going to say, wow, this is brilliant, this is great, this is the best idea I've ever seen. And none of that is helpful unless you want your ego stroked instead of your wallet full. What I do instead is I prompt my AI to look at my idea from the perspective of my ideal client. I've loaded their profile into my AI tool and I will ask, from my ideal buyer's perspective, how would this message land? It gives me much better feedback because it will tell me your ideal buyer is a growth stage CEO. They need actionable insights. They need solutions they can use today. You need a takeaway. You need a homework item. You got to get to the point and the pain faster. It has to be punchier. And it's a shortcut to something that I can actually test. So your AI assistant can certainly help you, especially if you are a founder without a co-founder. But your AI assistant should not be a substitute for real people. We are not there yet. Use it to go to mark faster, but don't use it as that validation. Also because it can't actually buy from you or pay you any real money. So you have to have the guts to get real feedback. And that means reaching out to people in your network. Think about potential clients, referral partners, maybe industry peers. Be careful with your business friends. Really, all you have to do is say, I'm working on a new offer. I value your opinion. Could you spend 10 to 15 minutes looking at it and give me your honest feedback? And that is how you validate from people who might be potential referral partners or potential purchasers of your product or your solution. And like I said, be very careful. Your business friends, like AI, want to be nice. So you might still hear this is great when it might not be. Real feedback comes from the real conversations from the people that you actually want to serve. So since my AI tool tells me that my audience wants an actionable thing that they can do right now, here's your mini homework. Pick 5 to 10 people who fit your ideal client profile or who work with your ideal client profile, those potential partners. Ask for a short feedback conversation about an offer that you're working on. And here's a bonus. If you have a smart sales playbook like the ones that I build for my clients, you can also ask it, from my buyer's point of view, how would this land? And that is your scrappy test. You can use AI to perfect it a little bit and craft an outgoing message and then reach out to those 5 to 10 folks for real human feedback. And you can do this in a week. If you're a growth stage company in SaaS or financial services and you're struggling to figure out what's working and what's not and how to scale something real, let's talk. I build AI-powered smart sales playbooks that reduce admin, help reps sell more, and make sure your messaging connects before you scale it. The link is in the show notes. And those sales playbooks are just a portion of what I do. Really, the foundational work is figuring out who your ideal buyer is, what they care about, and getting your teams aligned to help your ideal buyer solve their business challenges better and faster than your competitor and convert all of that to real revenue growth for you. I appreciate this listen to Revenue Remix. Share this episode with a founder or product leader who needs a little tough love, and I will see you next week.